What's going on, guys? John Elder here from Codemy.com, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a weather app with Ruby on Rails. Alright guys, like I said in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a weather app with Ruby on Rails. But before we get started, if you like this video, want to see more like it, be sure to smash the like button below, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out Codemy.com where I have dozens of courses with hundreds of videos that teach you to code. Use coupon code YouTube to get $22 off membership. It's all my courses, videos, and books for a one-time fee of just $27, which is insanely cheap. Alright, this video is going to be one long video of my course, How to Build a Weather App with Ruby on Rails. Alright guys, I've said it before, you don't necessarily need to know the Ruby programming language in order to use Ruby on Rails, but it definitely helps. And especially if we want to get into more advanced Ruby on Rails things, you really need to understand Ruby. And I have got a book that I published several years ago, Intro to Ruby Programming, Beginner's Guide Series. It is awesome. It is a couple hundred pages long. No. It is 160 odd pages long. And this has been the #1 best-selling Ruby book on Amazon in the Ruby programming category, off and on since I published it almost 3 years ago. So if you're interested in learning Ruby in much greater detail and you want a reference guide that you can just, kind of flip to and look up things as you go, which is really handy, check this out. It's like 20 bucks or something. I don't know. It's not that expensive, $24, something like that. Ooh, I've got it on here. So I'll put a link in the description below, but here it is. There's paperback for 27, Kindle for looks like 10 bucks. Wow, good deal. Get the paperback. Come on. It's nice to have it as a quick reference guide. You don't like to be searching through a Kindle book for something when you want to look up something really quickly. You can just flip to the table of contents, go to page, 53 and see what you want to see, and much better. I've also got this Ruby on Rails book that I published, 5 years ago or so. And this has also been the #1 best-selling Ruby on Rails book in the Ruby on Rails category at Amazon.com, off and on since I published it. See, there's the back. And same thing, I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested. In this book, I build a clone of the website Pinterest, and you follow along and build your own copy. This one's a little bit bigger. It's 215 pages, it looks like. But very cool book if you're interested. I know this is a video, I know this is YouTube and we do videos, but sometimes you just like to have a book to grab off your shelf and look something up really quickly instead of hunting through videos for, half an hour. So if you're interested, check out those books. So this video is my How to Build a Weather App with Ruby on Rails course that you can get on Udemy or on my website Codemy. So I've just smushed all the videos together into one long video, and I'll put in the description below. I'll try to put like a timeline thing so you can click through if you want to look up specific things. But this is going to be a long one. It should be good. So let's get started. All right, my name is John Elder from Codemy.com, and I'll be your instructor today. In this course, I'm going to teach you how to create this really simple Ruby on Rails app that checks air quality in your area and allows you to search other areas to find the air quality in that area as well. So we can go 10210. There we go. And it sort of outputs the screen, not just the ozone number, but a sort of colored guide. So green is good, yellow is a little worse, orange is a little worse, red is, danger, and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do here is connect to this Air Now government website that shows current ozone levels, air quality levels in your area. So they have an API. We're going to connect to that API and pull data and then do stuff with it in the app and then output it onto the screen. So a very, very simple website, but it's going to teach you all kinds of really cool things, how to, pull data from an API, how to connect to it, how to manipulate the data afterwards, how to do logic, if the number is above a certain level, put green, orange, yellow, that sort of thing. Basic things, but kind of cool. And, I don't know if you're like me, but I get outside a lot as much as I can. I like to walk and hike in the mountains, and ozone is important, especially high up in the altitudes. I'm out here in Vegas, and we're 4,000 something above sea level. We're way up there, and ozone has an impact on us. So it's nice to have this little app I could just pull up, and it shows me my ozone in my level right now is 90, which means moderate. We got a little blurb here, and very cool. So not too terribly difficult of stuff, but it's still very cool. In the next couple of videos, we'll start by downloading and installing Ruby on Rails. We need several tools in order to install Rails, so they're all free. I'll walk you through them all step by step, and they're pretty simple, and we'll get started in the next video. Okay, so before we get started, I want to spend just a minute talking about some of the things that we're going to need. So in order to install Ruby on Rails on a Windows computer, we have to download all kinds of different things. First off, we have to download Node. Now, Node is the JavaScript web framework, and it's kind of weird that we need that in order to install and run Ruby on Rails, but for some reason we do, so we'll do that in the next video. We also need a text editor, something to write our code on. We're going to be using the Sublime text editor. If you have some other text editor that you like using, absolutely feel free to use that. You can use anything you want, it really doesn't matter. But I like Sublime, it's totally free, so we're going to download that. We also need a terminal, something to write our commands on. And we're going to be using something called Git Bash, it's also free. And if you're on a Mac or Linux, you can use the terminal that comes with Mac or Linux. You just go up to the top of your screen, the little search thing on your operating system, type in terminal, and it'll work fine. Windows users, we have a couple of terminal command prompt type things. We have something called the PowerShell and the command prompt, which come with Windows, but they don't really work that well. They don't allow us to do version control that well. And there's some other little things about them that aren't great. So we're going to use the Git Bash terminal. It's very similar to what you're going to use on a Mac or a Linux. So it's all sort of nice and easy for everyone to follow along if you're on a different operating system. We also need something called the Heroku Toolbelt. We're going to be pushing our code up to Heroku for third-party web hosting, and we need some software to do that behind the scenes. It's also free, and I think that might be it. Of course, we also have to download and install Ruby on Rails. We'll get to that in a bit too. So a lot of things we need to do, but they're all free. They're all real easy to install, and we're going to spend the next few videos sort of downloading and installing those. So that'll be coming up in the next video. Okay, so first things first, we need to install Node.js. Now, this is kind of weird for me. I'm not a big Node person. I use it, I know how to use it, but sort of having to install it in order to install Ruby on Rails doesn't quite sit right with me for some reason. It's just kind of weird, but not a big deal. Chances are you already have Node on your computer because a lot of programs require Node, and it'll sort of download in the background when you install something else. So there's a pretty good chance you have it, and if you do, we're going to want to uninstall it first. And the reason why is because we want the latest, greatest version of Node. And sometimes, especially if Node got installed sort of behind the scenes with something else, it might have been a very old version of Node. So that might not work with the newest version of Ruby on Rails. So we just want to kind of clear the slate and make sure we get rid of it before we get started. So I'm going to come to my Windows command or control panel, and I just found this on the Windows Start menu, and come down here to uninstall a program. And then I'm just going to click anywhere and then type the N key on my keyboard. And you see here Node.js. I do, in fact, have it installed already. So I'm just going to right click and click uninstall. And are you sure? Yes, blah, blah, blah. We get this little thing preparing to remove. Go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video very quickly here while this sort of does its thing. There's nothing for us to do. It'll remove it for us, and then we'll get a little message when it finishes. So I'm going to pause the video. We'll pick it up right when this finishes. Okay, so that little screen just disappeared. That means that it was removed successfully. We didn't get any other sort of confirmation, but that's all we need. So now we just head over to our web browser and then just type in Node. And I'm just going to search for Node at Google. The first thing that pops up, nodejs.org, is what we want. And you'll notice when we come here, it comes straight to the download page. Right? There's not even anything to read. Just boom, here's your download. And there's two different versions. The 10.15.3 LTS, which stands for long-term support, I believe, and then 12.1.0 current. And this has the latest features. Now, if these numbers are different by the time you watch this video, they probably will be. These are always, updating and, putting out newer versions. No big deal. Just download the most recent ones. Whatever's listed there is going to be okay. So which one of these do we want? We want this LTS one. Now, you're going to see this 12.1 and you're going to be like, ooh, that's a higher number. I want that one. But you probably shouldn't. This is the one that's sort of like the most current stable version, and that's what we want. We don't want the one with the latest, greatest test features or whatever. We want the one that we know is going to work. And so that's this one right here. So go ahead and click this, and we can save this anywhere we want. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Click save, and it downloads really quickly. It's not a very big file. So To install this, we just come down here and click it, or you can navigate to your desktop or wherever you saved it and double click it there. I'm just going to click this, and we have this thing. Yes, we want to run it, and we see this. Now, if you didn't uninstall it first and you did have Node on your computer, you're going to see a different screen. You're going to see something that asks whether you want to update or remove or fix or do something like that. So you're going to want to uninstall the old one first, so just follow those prompts. But for everybody else who's followed along so far, you'll see this screen. Click next. You got the license. Next. You can install this anywhere. I'm just going to take the default. And don't change anything here. Click next. And then install. And this will go ahead and install. It'll take a couple of minutes, so I'll go ahead and pause this in just a second. But one thing I will mention is when this finishes installing, it doesn't tell you to restart your computer. You know, when you install things, a lot of times it'll say, installation complete, please restart your computer. Node does not do that, but I'm telling you right now, you definitely want to restart your computer. It's just, Node is just one of those things. You just want to give your computer a quick restart. It won't tell you to do it, like I said, but just go ahead and do it anyway. So we are almost done with this, I think. So I will maybe pause or maybe just talk for a minute until this creeps along. Yeah. All right, here we go. Come on. Okay, so Node.js has been successfully installed. We're good to go. Like I said, there's no mention of restarting your computer, but listen to me, you're not going to want to. Nobody likes restarting their computer, but do it. It's important. If you don't, chances are a lot higher we're going to have an error later on when we install Ruby on Rails. And Rails is hard enough to install as it is. We don't want to add any other optional sort of problems into the mix. So restart your computer, click finish first, and then that'll be good. So in the next video, we'll install our text editor and our git bash terminal. Okay, so we've got Node installed. We're good there. Next, I want to talk about installing our text editor. And this is the text editor we're going to be using. It's called Sublime Text. It's just a basic coding text editor. Like I said earlier, if you have some editor that you like to use, Visual Studio Code or Notepad++ or anything at all, if you're comfortable using that, feel free to use that. Absolutely. Use whatever you want. It really doesn't matter what text editor you use, but Sublime Text is an industry standard. Most people use it. Seems like one of the most popular ones. Totally free. If you want, you can throw those guys some money. Every once in a while, a little box will pop up asking for a donation. You can, or you don't have to do that. So sort of keep that in mind. So I'm going to head over to Google again. Type in Sublime Text. First thing that pops up is the sublimetext.com website, and this is it. So to download this, you just click this link right here. And right now we're on Sublime Text 3, build 3207. It will likely change that number by the time you watch this video. No big deal. Download whatever current version it is. And it's the same thing. You just click this. We can save it anywhere. Save it to your desktop. It'll download, and then just click that button. I'm not going to walk you through this one because it's super simple. There's nothing for you to do. Just take the defaults, click next, and it will start. In order to use the Sublime Text, just go to your Windows Start menu, type in Sublime, and it'll pop right up. So the next thing we need, and the more important thing, is the git bash terminal. So I'm going to go git bash at Google here, and the first thing that pops up is this git-scm.com/downloads, and that's what we want. And right here, we're on version 2.21.0. Again, if it's a different version by the time you watch this, no big deal. Download whatever the latest version is. And remember, if you're on a Mac or a Linux, you can download this, but you don't need to. You can just use the terminal that comes with Mac or Linux. It works just as well as the git bash terminal. I think it is a bash terminal, so you're good to go there. So go ahead and click this to download, and it will pop up automatically. Download it to your desktop. Now this is, I think, 40 megabytes, but it takes a long time to download for some reason. It always has. I have high-speed internet. It should download in like 2 seconds, and it's already been like 15 seconds now. So for some reason, it's always been like that. So if it takes a little while to download, no big deal. Just go ahead and wait. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while we wait, and we'll pick it up as soon as this finishes downloading. Okay, so it's finished downloading. And again, you can navigate to your desktop and click it there, or just come down here and click it and open this and click run. Let me pull this over. Okay, so general license, click next. Don't make any of these changes, any changes in here. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Just we want all the defaults here. Now this is kind of weird. It asks you what text editor you're going to be using, and it happens to have the Sublime Text as the default one, but there's a whole bunch of different ones you can pick. But the weird thing is, we never use the Git Bash terminal with a text editor. They're two separate things. So I have no idea why they ask this. It's not like it integrates into the text editor in any way. So you can just ignore this. If you're not using Sublime Text, you don't have to go in and find the one that you're using. Just click Next. It's just a weird thing. Next, we want this bottom button to be checked. It's the default one, so click Next. And again, we want this checked. Also, it's the default. SSH is a secure key thing that we're going to be using to connect to things like Heroku and github.com for version control. We'll talk about that later on. Same thing with this OpenSSL library. We want that checked. And this top checkout window style, this doesn't really matter, but we could just go ahead and leave that as the default. Same thing with this min TTY thing. And finally leave these two default, and then come down and click install. Now I've already installed this, so I'm not going to do this last step, but you will obviously click this install button, and the little box will pop up, and you get the scroll bar, and it'll show you the status and all that. You just wait for it to install, and you're good to go. Same thing with the Sublime text editor. If you want to run this, you just go to your Windows Start menu. Go ahead and click cancel, and this is off screen so you can't see, but it's just git bash. You just type that into the search and it'll pop up. Let me pull this over. And this is the git bash terminal. We'll talk about this a little bit more probably in the next video. In fact, in the next video, we will look at this and I'll show you how to set up the SSH key. This will allow us to securely connect to, like I said, other websites like github.com to push our code up for version control, Heroku to push our code up for web hosting, things like that. You need an SSH key, so we'll generate one of those in the next video. Okay, in this video, I want to generate an SSH key with our Git Bash terminal. So Ruby on Rails requires, I believe at this point, a SSH key for some stuff behind the scenes, but we also need one to push our code up to GitHub for version control. We'll talk about that in a bit, and also to push our code up to Heroku. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So we just need an SSH key. It's just a security thing we need to do. So I've opened up the Git Bash terminal, and if you see here, let's put this up a bit. There we go. If I type in pwd, now if you don't know how to use this terminal, no big deal. I'm going to show you some commands here and there, and you only need a few, so there's nothing really you need to learn. So just sort of follow along here. pwd shows us what directory we're in. And you can see we're in c/users/flatplanet. Flatplanet is the name of my computer. It's the username that I'm logged in as. I don't think the world is flat. I just find it hilarious that people do. So I kind of name my computer that. Whatever your username is, your computer name, whatever that is, it'll be there. So that's what you want. So the first thing we need to do is create a directory to hold our SSH key. And we just use the mkdir command, stands for make directory. And then just type /SSH. And a period on a directory means that the directory is hidden. The folder is hidden. It won't show up. And that's what we want for security related SSH keys. So that's how we do that. Okay, so now we need to move into that directory. We need to change directory. So we use the cd command, change directory, and then just type .ssh. And if we type in pwd again, you see we are in fact in flatplanet/SSH. You can also notice it says it right there. So now if we type ls to list the stuff that's in this directory, there's nothing there. So that's good. I'm going to type clear to clear the screen. So now we just need to generate our SSH key. And it's super easy. It used to be hard in the old days. You used to have to download some software to do it. Now it's built right into this Git Bash terminal, which is one of the nice things about it. One of the reasons why we use it, because it has stuff like that just built in, which is very cool. So to generate an SSH key, we just type in SSH-keygen.exe. This is going to run a little program that generates our key for us. And it's asking us where we want to save this. And we just want to save it in this directory, so we could just hit enter. And now it's asking for a passphrase. And whenever we try and push our code up to Heroku or push our code up to GitHub, if we pick a password right now, it will ask for this password forever. So you need to remember what that password is. Personally, I don't ever really do that. I just leave this blank. And in that case, when we push our code up to GitHub later on, it won't even ask for the password. So it's just one less thing to remember. I don't think hackers are going to steal anything with this. So like an extra password on top of this seems to me not necessary. But if you want a password, type it in there. If you type it in right now, nothing will appear on the screen. That's a security feature. So don't worry, it is actually typing it in. So just type it in and hit enter. Nothing will appear on the screen. But for me right now, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to hit enter. And then it says enter the same passphrase again. I hit enter again. And boom, it's generated our key. So if I clear the screen, now if we type in ls to list the stuff in our directory, we see these two files, ID_RSA and ID_RSA pub. And this is what we want. This is the public key. And later on, we're going to have to take this key and upload it to GitHub or wherever else we want to use it. And so we'll do that later on. But if we want to just look at it right now, we can type cat to catalog the file and then ID_RSA.pub. And you can see this whole thing is our SSH key. It looks like a bunch of gobbledygook. It's just a security hash type thing. And no big deal. We have it now and we're good to go. So that's all there is to that. In the next video, we'll go ahead and install, I think the last thing we need to install before Rails, the Heroku Toolbelt, and that'll allow us to push our code up to web hosting for free later on, which is very cool. So we'll look at that in the next video. Okay, so we've got our SSH key. Now we want to install the Heroku Toolbelt. And Heroku, if you're not aware, is a third-party web hosting company that sort of specializes in things like Ruby on Rails. And they've been around forever. They're one of the most popular sort of Ruby on Rails web hosting. And the reason why I like to use them is because they have a free tier. And the free tier allows you to upload your stuff and have it live online. It's just not very powerful. Like not many people can like visit your website at once. It will be very slow, but it's free. If you then want to upgrade it, you can and start paying, at which point your web hosting becomes more powerful, more people can visit your website at one time before it gets slow and things like that. So for our purposes, for testing and for building cool new things, Heroku is great, so that's what we're going to use. So in order to sort of talk to Heroku behind the scenes from our terminal here, in order to push our Ruby on Rails code up, we need something called the Heroku Toolbelt. So we'll download and install that right now. So head back over to Google, and I'm just going to type in Heroku Toolbelt. And this is a little weird. It doesn't pop right up here. This is an ad for Heroku. We don't want that. We don't want the pricing. We want this Heroku CLI. And the website address is devcenter.heroku.com/articles/Heroku-CLI. And CLI stands for, I think, command line interface. So our terminal is a command line. So we need an interface to interface our command line to Heroku. So that's what we want here. So if you come down here, you see there's a Mac, there's a Linux version here. We want the Windows version. Likely you're on a 64-bit computer because pretty much all computers are 64-bit or higher these days. So we go ahead and click this to install. Same thing as before, we can install, or we can download this anywhere we want. I'm just going to download it to my desktop. Click save. And boom, there it is. And again, you can navigate to your desktop and click it there, or just click it right here. So we will open this. Pull this over. Now, the most important thing is to make sure this is checked. Set path to Heroku. And with Windows, the path is important. Path means we can run this anywhere on our computer. We don't have to be in like the Heroku directory in order to run it. So if you add it to your path, you can run it from anywhere, which is what we want. So it's checked by default, so you just leave it like that. Click next. Again, you can install this anywhere. Just take the default. It is 109 megabytes, so just be aware of that. And then here we go. It takes a couple of minutes to do this. It's installing all kinds of stuff. I see a bunch of JavaScript being installed, so it's another reason probably why we'll need Node in order to run this as well. So you need Node for everything these days, it seems like. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this finishes its thing. We'll pick it up right when it's done. Okay, so it says completed, so we can come down here and click close. Now we want to head over to our terminal here, and we want to make sure this has been installed. So I'm going to type in Heroku --version. And it says right there, it gives us the current version that's been installed. So that means it's been installed correctly. If you get a command or a message that says like Heroku command not found or something like that, that means that it hasn't been installed correctly and you need to reinstall it, but you're probably good to go. It also might mean you need to restart your terminal bash, your bash terminal thing here. So I'm going to come up here and just click the X just in case. And then I'm going to come to the Windows Start menu that you can't see and type in Git again and pull this over. just when you install things like that work with this terminal, it's just a good idea to restart it, give it another start, just to make sure everything's been installed correctly. So that's it. Those are all the tools that we need to install Ruby on Rails. In the next video, we will jump right in, download, and install Ruby on Rails. Very exciting, finally. It takes a while to do this, but we're almost done, and we'll start that in the next video. Okay, so it is finally time to download and install Ruby on Rails. Now, you're likely going to want to go to rubyonrails.org. This is the official website of Ruby on Rails. And you can see right here, they have the latest version, 5.2.3. And you're going to want to just click this and install it like this. Don't do that. This is the sort of official Ruby on Rails. It's a lot harder to install. There's a whole bunch of stuff you need to do. It's just kind of a hassle. Instead, we're going to go to something called railsinstaller.org. And this is a Windows installer. I think there's a Mac version as well. And this is like an executable file that we can just download and install. And it does all the stuff behind the scenes that we would have to do normally ourselves, does it for us. And it's super, super useful. So we have a couple of different options here. We can do Ruby 2.2 or Ruby 2.3. Now, Ruby is the programming language that Rails is built with, Ruby on Rails, right? So it really doesn't matter which of these you download and install. This is the slightly newer one. It comes with Rails 5.1 versus 5.0, which is this one right here, versus the current version is 5.23. So you're not getting the absolute newest version, but we really don't care. I mean, until just recently, I was still using Ruby on Rails version 4 point something, 4.2 or something. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have the highest, newest thing. But like everything else, if the version numbers change by the time you watch this video, no big deal. Just pick one of these. I'm going to go ahead and pick this 2.3, the latest one with Rails 5.0 or 5.1. You can see it comes with Ruby 2.3.3, Rails 5.1, bundler, Git. We've already got our Git bash terminal. It has Git installed already, so we don't need that. SQLite is a little database. We're going to have to talk about that probably in the next video. And a couple other things. DevKit, this goes with Ruby. So those things go together. And that's cool. So let's go ahead and just click this. Save it anywhere you want. I'm going to save it to the desktop like always. And you can see it is a little bit bigger than some of the other files we've downloaded so far. It's 112 megabytes. It downloads pretty quickly though. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it very quickly and we'll pick it up as soon as this finishes downloading. Okay, that was like 20 seconds later. There's probably no need to stop the video, but we can go ahead, same as before, navigate to your desktop and double click it there, or just click it right here to install. And we want to run this guy. Let me pull this over. And so we want to accept all of the licenses and all that good stuff. Click next. And I'm going to uninstall this, this checkbox right here because we already have Git. It came with our Git bash terminal. So we're good to go there. We definitely want to add executables for Ruby, DevKit, and Git. If checked above to the path, we talked about path before. This means that, you know, we can run Ruby on Rails from anywhere on our computer. We don't have to be in the Ruby on Rails directory or whatever. Same thing for Ruby. We can run the Ruby programming language from anywhere on our computer, not just the Ruby directory. So we definitely need to make sure this one has been checked. So we can go ahead and click this button to install. Now, this is going to install 500 plus megabytes of stuff. It's something like close to 25,000 files. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here. So go ahead and click install. And it's installing it in C Rails installer directory if you're curious. I don't know why you would be. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause this. We'll pick it up as soon as it finishes doing its thing. Okay, so it's completed the installation. We get this nice little screen here to end it. And we're good to go. We can go ahead and click finish and we're done. So now Rails has apparently been installed, but we're not quite sure yet because we haven't actually tried using it. And we'll need to try to use it by just creating a Rails project. So we'll do that in the next video. Okay, so we've installed Ruby on Rails, we think, but we're not sure yet until we actually run it once. And to do that, we just create a project. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to create a simple test project, not our main project, just to make sure that Ruby on Rails has been installed correctly, because a lot of times you'll get an error at this stage. And so I'm going to show you what to do if that happens as well. So I'm in my Git bash terminal, and I should mention I closed this terminal and restarted it. I opened a new version of it, or a new instance of it, because Ruby on Rails needs to be, the Git Bash terminal needs to be restarted in order to take into effect the changes that the Ruby on Rails installer just did. So if we come here to PW and type in pwd just to make sure which directory we're in, we see that we're in this directory here. We actually want to be in our C directory right now. So I'm going to change directory and type in C and pwd again to make sure we're in there. So now we want to create a directory to hold our new Ruby on Rails test project we're about to create. So let's go mkdir to make a directory, and let's just call this Rails test. Okay, so now we need to change into that directory. So I just type in cd Rails test and pwd to make sure we're in there. Okay, so the command to create a new Rails project is just Rails and then new, and then let's just call this tester. I don't know. So you can see, boom, it's creating all these files, and the first little message we get is we're not running the current version of the bundler, so we need to run this gem install bundler command. So we'll do that as soon as this whole thing finishes doing its thing. We probably don't have to do that, but you want to be on the latest version, so we'll just go ahead and do that. It looks like it installed an older version when we use the Rails installer thing. So what it's doing here is it's fetching all of the gems and all of the dependencies that we need from probably from a website. Yeah, right here you can see from rubygems.org. And we'll talk more about gems and dependencies later on. But that's what's going on here. It's just going and getting all those files and making sure that they're either installed or updated or whatever. So this can take a minute or two. Now, I often get an error message towards the end of this, and I hope it happens this time. It doesn't always happen for some reason, but sometimes it does, and I'm hoping it does this time so that I can walk you through what to have or what you should do if you get an error. And there we did. We get that error message. So this is cool. Well, we can talk about what happens when you get an error, and it's not just for installation. You'll get errors a lot using Ruby on Rails because it's easy to make mistakes. And the important thing is to Google those errors. I mean, you can ask me while you're taking the course, but that's not the way you learn. You need to try it yourself first. And if you can't figure it out, absolutely ask me. But you're going to do a lot of Googling when you're using Ruby on Rails, so you should just sort of get used to it. And we can start right now. But before we even look at this error, I'm going to scroll back up here and let's see, grab this command it wants us to do. So I'm just going to highlight, right click and copy, and then just scroll back down and right click and paste. And we just want to install the bundler thing. Say enter, and it lags for a second, and then it'll jump and do it real quick here. So we just sort of wait for a second, and it should do its thing, hopefully. Okay, successfully installed bundler 2.0.1. If it's a different version, don't worry, no big deal. Okay, so that's taken care of. Now let's look at this. So to see why this extension failed to compile, please check the make. No, we don't want to do that. Let's see. Let's just see gem files remain uninstalled. If we look through here, I'm seeing like right here, SQLite. That's a database. SQLite. That's a database. SQLite database. So obviously there's a problem with SQLite. And if we look through here, an error occurred while installing this, and bundler cannot continue. Make sure that the gem installs SQLite 3, blah, 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 succeeds before bundling. So now I know what to do to fix this, but normally you wouldn't. So what do you do? Well, you want to just sort of grab something that kind of makes sense to you in here and Google it. So like right here, I might say, make sure the gem blah, blah, blah succeeds. I might highlight this and click copy, and then just head over to Google and paste that in. And you're likely going to see a lot of Stack Overflow articles, and that's a great website. It will be your best friend. It's sort of like a social network for coders, and it's a place where you can go and ask questions and say, hey, I'm getting this error. What do I do? And people that have gotten that error before will say, oh, you just do this, and they'll tell you. It's fantastic. So we see this here. I would probably just click the first thing and start reading, right? They're usually a couple pages long and not too bad. Now, in this case, you can see this guy did the same thing. He's got all these things installing, and then this is not what we need, right? So, okay, we can go through and look at all of these, and maybe one of them in there will have a suggestion. I happen to know what's going on here, so I know that that's not going to do the trick for us. Instead, we want to come back here and let's look through here a little bit more. If we scroll up, we get even more error messages. Checking for SQLite. So we have this .h thing. What is that? Who knows? Here it says SQLite 3.h is missing. Install blah 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 first. It's telling us to download SQLite, the database. Now that doesn't seem right to me, but we can copy this at least and head back over to Google and see. If we paste that in, unable to install. I generally look for the SQLite. And this one I happen to know is probably the one. If I didn't know that, I would just spend, half an hour reading through all of them until I found the one. But we come down here and, oh, maybe this isn't the one. I don't think it is. No. Oh, you know what I often do is I'll look at the dates here. So it's 2017, 2015. These are no good. We want something more current, right? So I'm going to keep looking down here. I don't see anything. So let's see. Let's do this. There we go. One from 2019, right? So a lot of times, this is a lot more work than you'll have to do. Most times when you copy in your error message, the first thing that pops up is going to work. But for some reason, this particular one takes a little while. And so you'll just have to read through until you find the answer. But this is definitely the one we want. The latest one, 2019. And we can look through here. The guy's got the same error codes that we have. And you can see right here, here's the answer. Rails tries to automatically install the latest version of SQLite 3, but the new version doesn't work with Rails yet. So you need to specify an older version in order to run it. So we will just add this reference to our gem file, and you don't know what a gem file is yet, so you're not quite sure what to do. So I'm going to open up my SQLite or my Sublime text editor and very quickly show you how to do that. So to add all of our new Ruby on Rails stuff to our Sublime text, just go up to project, and we want to add folder to project. So now we just head over to our C drive, and we saved all that stuff in the Rails test, I think. Yeah, Rails test. And that, if you've forgotten already, is just this directory we're sitting in right here, Rails test, right? So we just basically want to open that directory in Sublime. So go ahead and click that. And then the Rails project we created was tester. So you just highlight the project. Don't click through it, just highlight it because we want to select the folder. And when we do, boom, 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 all of the Ruby on Rails files that we need show up there. So we want to come to the gem file, and I'll talk about what the gem file is more later on. But you see, there's this reference right here to SQLite 3. And this is what's throwing up an error. So instead, we want to come back to that website and highlight this and copy, and then just paste it in there, right? And up here, we want to highlight out the old one, or comment out the old one. Now I'm going to hit Control S on my keyboard, Command S if you're on a Mac to save it, or you can come up here and click Save. Now, we just need to install that. So head back over to our terminal, and since we're in the Rails test directory, we can hit ls to see what's in there, and we see there's that directory. So we want to change into that directory. Oops, cd tester / there we go. So you can see now we're in tester, right? And let's clear this screen. Now we want to type the command bundle install. This will install that SQLite thing we just put in the gem file. It will also make sure everything else is current at the moment, right? So, all right, fetching all this stuff from Ruby gems. We'll talk more about what all these things are later on. And if we look down towards the bottom here, when it finishes, it should show us that version, there it is, SQLite 3 version 1.3. If we look here, we're saying install SQLite 3 with a version less than 1.4. And what we got was version 1.3, and now everything will work correctly. That error message is no longer necessary, and we're good to go. So we have correctly and successfully, I should say, installed Ruby on Rails. Everything is working good. We have our new little project called Tester. We're not going to use this going forward in this course. We'll create an actual new project. And in fact, that's how we'll confirm that this little fix worked. Well, actually, it won't confirm because we'll get that error again next time when we create our new project. But we know how to fix it now just by adding in this reference right here to our gem file. Whoops. At the time. So that'll be cool. And yeah, so we're ready to get started and actually start building out our app. So we'll start to do that in the next video. Okay, so let's dive in and get started. The first thing we need to do is create a new project. We're not going to use the tester one, like I said. And so let's head back to our terminal, and we need to change into, make sure we're in the C drive. And we can pwd to make sure we're in there. Okay, so now we can just type in Rails new, and let's name this thing, and let's call this Ozone. Doesn't really matter what you call it. It's doing the things. Okay, and we got that same error again. So let's head over to Sublime and open this project. Go to Project, Add Folder to Project, and we just want to navigate to our C drive and then look for that Ozone directory that we just created. And don't double click it, just single click it, select the folder, and boom. So now we can open up our gem file, and right away, let's just fix this SQLite thing and get rid of that. And while I'm here, I'm gonna get rid of all these comments. I always like to do that. Starting out. Oops, there we go. A couple more. You don't have to do this. I just find that it's a little bit easier to read this file without all those comments. All right, so let's save this, head back over to our terminal, and give this a bundle install to go ahead and fix that. Oh, you know, we're still in the C directory. We need to change into Ozone. All right, clear the screen. Now give it a bundle install. And we should be good to go, but let's run the Rails server just to make sure. And so we can see our project is running at localhost 3000. So I can copy this and open up a web browser, paste this in and hit enter. And this is the screen that should pop up. If this pops up, everything's done correctly and we're good to go. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about what all of these files and folders are. I'm going to kind of assume you already have a basic fundamental knowledge of Ruby on Rails. So I'm going to go kind of quickly throughout the rest of this course. I have other courses. There's a stock market Ruby on Rails app that goes into really great detail if you don't know the basics and you need to sort of understand what all these things are. If you don't know the basics, you'll probably be okay throughout this course, but I'm just going to go quick. I'm not going to like deep dive and explain a lot of the things that I'm doing. So right off the bat, let's just pull up our terminal here. I'm going to close Control C to close out the server. And let's just go Rails G to generate a controller. Let's call it home and index. So this is going to create a web page for us and a controller to go along with that web page. It's going to be in our home directory, and the name of the web page is our index page. And so if we head back over here, we can go to App, Views, Home, and we have this index page. We can run the server again, Rails S, and then come back to our website and go to home/index, and we see this page that we just created has popped up. So that's cool, but now we want to change the route. We don't want it to be home index. We want it to just be our local host URL. So head back over to, let's see, let's close this out. We want config routes. Here's our route file. Let's create a root route, and it's just going to be home:index, and we can comment this old one out, save this, head back over here, and if we go back to home index and hit reload, this page will no longer exist, right? We get an error. But if we go to our main URL, localhost 3000, that page now does exist. So All right, we've got the framework. We've got a web page built. It's very cheesy, but it works. And we can change this if we want by going back to app, views, home, index. And then here we can see, let's call this Ozone app. If we save this, come back and hit reload, now it says Ozone app. So we've got our framework. And in the next video, we're going to jump in and install the Bootstrap CSS framework so we can start making this page look nicer. And that'll be in the next video. Okay, in this video, I wanted to install the Bootstrap CSS framework. And if you're not familiar with Bootstrap, head over to getbootstrap.com. And here you can see we're on version 4.3. If it's changed by the time you watch this video, you can toggle different versions right there. But if we just come up here to the documentation, the great thing about Bootstrap is we can just add things to our website just by copying the code that's on these pages, pasting it into our app, and it just works. Of course, first we have to install Bootstrap, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So head over to rubygems.org. Rubygems.org is the place where you can find gems to add to your project. You're familiar with that. Let's go to Bootstrap, type that in, and here we go, 4.3.1, which corresponds with this guy right up here, 4.3. So go ahead and click this and grab this gem file reference, just copy it to your clipboard. And let's head back over here and open our gem file. And somewhere down here, doesn't really matter, just paste this in and save that. Now, Bootstrap is a little bit more complicated. There's a few more things we need to do. So let's go to the home page and look at the documentation. It'll tell us exactly what to do. First thing it says here is add the reference. We just did that. And now it says it wants us to add this. Go ahead and copy this to this application.scss file inside of our app assets style sheet directory. So we can head up over here. Here's app, assets, style sheets. And you can see we have this application.css file, but it wants us to have application.scss, different file extension. So instead of that, we can do that, but I always just call this, let's click here and click new file, and then paste in that code it wanted us to paste in. Now I'm going to come up here and hit File, Save As, and I'm going to name this bootstraply.css.scss. So it ends in .scss like the documentation wanted us to. I've also put CSS in there. It's just I've always done it this way. We can put CSS in this file if we want to, and we may. I haven't decided yet. We have that option by naming it .css. And I named it Bootstraply. The documentation asks us to name it application. I don't think we need to do that. We can name it anything we want. So I just did that because we already have an application file in there, and it's kind of confusing to have two files with the name application, even though the extension on the end is different. So, all right, we've done that. Now, let's see. It says we also need to add jQuery Rails to our gem file. So copy this. Head back to our gem file right here and paste that in and save it. And finally, it says it wants us to add these things to our application.js file. And so we can copy this. Head back over here, and that's in app assets JavaScript application.js. And I just come up here, and above this required tree line, right? This one needs to be the last thing on this page, but above that you could just paste in those three things. So go ahead and save that. All right, so now I think we're done. We can head over to, actually I'm going to open up a new Git Bash terminal because we've got the server running in this one, and I just want to let the server keep running. So let me pull this over real quick, resize it. All right, now we need to change directory into C Ozone. Okay. So now we just need to bundle install to install the jQuery gem as well as the Bootstrap gem that we just added to our gem file. Okay, so that looks to be good. Now you want to head over to the terminal where you have your Rails server running and Control-C to exit and then run this again. It's a good idea to restart your server when you add new gems, and especially the Bootstrap because it ties into everything. So it's just a good idea to do that. And it looks like, all right, we're ready to go. So head back over to our website. Now take a look at the text, right? Notice the color and the position and the font. When I hit reload, it should change slightly if Bootstrap has been installed correctly. Boom, you can see it's up closer to the screen. The font has changed, it's a little straighter looking. So that means it's definitely been installed correctly and we're good to go. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we're gonna start to build out our app with a Navbar. We'll get that from Bootstrap and that'll be in the next video. Okay, so we've got Bootstrap installed. We are ready to go. Now I want to add a Navbar at the top of this page here. All websites have Navbars at the top. So let's go ahead and do that. Head back over to getbootstrap.com, click on components, and then just scroll down until you see Navbar. And I'm just gonna grab the first one we see right here and copy this and head back over to Sublime. Let's close some of these files out. Don't need any of this stuff anymore. And go to home and then right click and create not a new folder. We want to create a new file and just paste in all that code we just copied. Now head over here to File, Save As, and we want to save this as _navbar.html.erb. And all web pages end in .html, but in Rails they also end in .erb. That allows us to do embedded Ruby on our HTML page, which is really, really cool. Go ahead and save that. So now this is a partial. We've just created a Ruby partial or Rails partial. To actually use this, we want to head over to our layouts and application.html. And right here above yield, we want to create a partial tag. And we just type in render and then home/navbar. So this will create a partial. It'll put all that code that's in our Navbar file that we just created right here. It'll output it onto the screen right there. And since it's in the application.html file, that means it'll be output on every single web page we create. Now, we're not going to create a whole lot of web pages, but it's still a good idea to do it this way. So let's save this and head back over here and hit reload on our site just to make sure. And boom, we have this Navbar at the top. Now, the first thing I always do with a Navbar is change this at the very top line here from Navbar light to Navbar dark. I just prefer the dark one. If you've taken another one of my courses, I always do that. So save this, head back over here and hit reload, and boom, now it's dark. So that's very cool. And the next thing I always do is get rid of all of these other links. We might keep this link one, but the rest of the stuff we want to get rid of. So let's first get rid of this disabled one. And it's easy. We just kind of look through here for the word disabled. And it's going to be towards the bottom. There it is. And then just go up and find the LI that wraps around it. And when you click on it here, the closing LI tag highlights, so you know that you can delete that. So save this and hit reload just to make sure it worked. Okay. Next, we want to get rid of this drop down thing. Same thing, just look around till you find the word drop down. There it is. And then here's the LI that wraps it. So we know it's all of this stuff. Save that. I like to save it after each time and make sure. And then finally, we want to get rid of this home one. And that is right there, home. So again, hit the LI, highlight and delete. So save that, reload. Okay, so we want to change this from Navbar to the name of our website. So come up here and I don't know, let's call it My Ozone. It doesn't really matter. So save that. All right, that's looking better. And finally, I want to kind of push this code away from the edge here. So let's head back to our application.html file. And this yield tag, this is what yields out our web page onto the screen. So above it, I just want to create a div tag with a class, if I could type, of container. This is just a Bootstrap class. And we want to close that. And we can sort of move stuff around like that. Okay, so also, well, let's just save this and make sure that worked. Hit reload. All right, so it bops it over. I also want to push it down a little bit. So same spot, I'm just going to create a line break tag, BR. That's just an HTML tag. Okay, so that's looking better. Now in the next video, I want to sort of work on this area right here, and we're going to put some a Jumbotron to make it look nicer, and we'll do that in the next video. Okay, in this video, we're going to sort of work on this area right here. We're going to add a Jumbotron, but first, I forgot about this guy over here. We're just going to leave this for now. We might use this, or we might not. If we don't use it, I'll go ahead and delete it, but for now, we'll leave it here. But I don't like that green button. I want to change it to sort of a gray button. So head back over to Bootstrap and click on buttons. And we see this secondary. That's the color that I want. So we just have to call btn secondary. So head back over to our Navbar and then look around for the search thing. And here we see search. And here's the button class. So instead of success, we want it to be secondary, like Bootstrap just said. All right, so head back here and hit reload. Okay, now it looks gray. Looks a little bit better. Okay, so now I want to play around with this area right here. I want to add something called a Jumbotron, I think. Maybe a card. This is a card. Let's go Jumbotron. Let's look around here. There it is, Jumbotron. And a Jumbotron is just this big box that's sort of gray colored, right? So I'm just going to copy this code right here. And let's head over to our app, views, home, index page. And right here it says all of this stuff. I'm just going to delete this and paste this whole thing in and save this. Head back over and hit reload. And okay, now it says hello world. Very cool. Yeah, that's looking a little better. Now, I think what we want to do is we're going to add our ozone thing right there, our ozone readout. And do we want to put any text below it? I don't know. For now, let's just go. This is the current ozone air quality readout for my neighborhood in Las Vegas. And then down here, we can go, I don't know, I'm just kind of playing right now. Hit reload in your web browser to update the reading. I don't know. Save this. I don't know. We could play around with this, and we will as we move forward. Do we want to change the color of this one for fun? Might as well. So instead of BTN primary, we learned we can go secondary. Did I spell that right? All right, reload, boom. Okay, so it's looking good. Now, I think we're pretty much done here layout-wise. You know, this isn't a great-looking website, but we're not going for amazing design here. We just want something functional that we can get online and make it look halfway decent. I think this looks halfway decent. We can play around with this all day. I think in the next video, we're going to start to connect to the API, or at least talk about it. And I'll show you where you can get your API code and all the good stuff. And we'll do that in the next video. Okay, so we've got our framework built, our little web app built. Now I want to talk about the actual data that we're going to be connecting to and using. So I use this website, airnow.gov. And you can come here and type in your zip code, and it'll give you the air quality currently at your zip code in your area. And it's really, really cool. You can see right now here in Vegas, it's moderate, which is okay. And down here, there's a little example of each one, what they are. So good air quality is satisfactory. Air pollution poses little or no risk. Moderate, which is what it is now, air quality is acceptable. However, for some pollutants, there may be a moderate health concern for a very small number of people who are unusually sensitive to air pollution. USG, the next one, 101 to 150. That's general public is usually okay, but people with lung disease, older adults, and children are at greater risk from exposure to ozone, whereas people with heart and lung disease, older adults, and children are at greater risk, blah, blah, blah. Unhealthy, everyone may begin to experience health effects. Very unhealthy, health alert, everyone may experience more serious health effects, and hazardous is a emergency condition, run for your life type thing. So It's nice that they're numbered. You can see 201 to 300, 151 to 200, 101 to 150, 51 to 100, and 0 to 50. And we'll use those numbers. And it's also kind of nice that they have color coding as well. We'll also use color coding on our app. So it's a very cool thing. I didn't start really looking at ozone until here recently, but I live in Vegas, and most people think Vegas, casinos, but actually the cool thing that I like about Vegas is the nature. We're in a valley surrounded by mountains, and I love to hike in the mountains. And the ozone really does affect you, especially so high up in the mountains. So I've begun, keeping track of it, and I found this website. It's very cool. The cool thing about this website is, though, it has an API. This is a government website. All government data is usable by the public, and this is no exception. So head over to docs.airnowapi.org, and you can click on the login page, and you actually need to register for this website in order to get access to the API. It's completely free. It's automatic. You just have to fill out this form. Come to the login page and click Request an Air Now API account, and then just fill out this form, right? So first name, last name, login name, password, email address, phone, and you can leave the comment blank, agree to their terms, and then request an account. And immediately they'll send you an API key. And we need that key in order to actually access the API. And there's some rate limits. You can only access so many times per hour, but it's high enough to where just for our personal use, it won't matter. I mean, I think you have to access it like thousands of times per hour before they cut you off. So that shouldn't be a problem for us in this thing. So once you do that, you're ready to go, and come back here and log in. And when you do, you just get returned to this page, but now you're logged in. And you can click on this web services link. And now we have all kinds of different APIs to choose from. And we're going to be using this observations by monitoring site one, at least for now. And we want to search by zip code. You can also search by like longitude and latitude, but who knows their own longitude and latitude? I sure don't. I mean, we can go to Google and figure it out, but zip codes work just as well. So we're going to be using this by zip code one. There's also forecasting if you want to get future, forecasts. And what else do we have? Stuff in the past, historical observations, if you want that for some reason. Like I said, though, we just want the current ozone number for our reporting area by zip code. So we can go to this, you can go to the documentation, and maybe we will here in a second. But what we really want is the query URL. And this will allow us to build our URL that we can use in our app. So put in your zip code and the distance you want. I usually just put 0 because I want it right around me. And then change this to JSON. We want this information returned to us as JSON because we can then parse that in our app much better. So once you do that, click build, and now you have this URL, and you notice it has your API key in it already. I might fuzz this out so you can't see my key. Not a big deal, but whatever. So then if you click run, you can see this is the data that it's going to return. And this is a little complicated looking right here. If we go to the documentation, it explains what all that stuff is. It returns all of this stuff, right? The date, the hour, the time zone, the reporting area, your state, latitude, longitude, parameter name, and then here's the thing we want, AQI. That's this number, say 45. That's what this number is right here, 54. And 54 is 51 to 100, which is moderate, which is yellow. So that's what we want, right? It also brings back category number and category name. We don't really care about that. So yeah, that's pretty much all we need. All we need to do now is take this and integrate it into our app, and we'll start to look at that in the next video. Okay, so we've got our API key, and we've got this URL that we've built with this little tool here. Now we need to add this into our app. So copy this, and there's a few things we actually need to do first, but we can get started now. So head over to our apps, controllers, and home controller. And this is the controller we created with our generate command a few videos ago when we created our first web page. This is the controller for our web page. Rails is a model view controller platform. Models are database stuff. Views are the web pages, and the controllers sort of like the brains behind the scenes. That's what this guy is right here. So we can do all kinds of cool code stuff in here. And this is where we're going to work with for the next video or two. So I'm going to create a variable called URL. And this is an instance variable since we're in a Ruby method. So we put a little @ sign in front of it. And I'm just going to put equal to and then some quotation marks. And I'm just going to paste in that API URL that we just copied. Now, in order to connect to this website sort of behind the scenes, we need a couple of little programs. And the first one is we have to require these little programs. And the first one is called net HTTP. And that does just what it sounds like. It goes up onto the internet to websites, HTTP websites, and it collects data. Now, we also need to parse that data once we collect it and bring it back to our app. And to do that, we use something called JSON, in quotes. Right? So remember, when we click this here, it's returning stuff in JSON format, which looks like this. This is JSON format. So we need to be able to parse that JSON format. There's a little program that does that called JSON. Now, there's a couple of different ways to sort of install JSON. Let's pull back our code here. We don't have to install net HTTP because it comes with Ruby already. It should already be in our system. Same thing with JSON. I think it comes with our app, but sometimes it doesn't. So I always just install it just to be sure. And like I said, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Head back over to our website here and let's go to rubygems.org and let's just search for JSON. And here it is. We can go ahead. It has 261 million downloads. That's probably it. So we can just copy this and head back over to our gem file and just kind of paste this in and click save. Head back over to our terminal here and just bundle install to install that app. Now that's sort of the main way to do it. That will probably work just fine. But I'll show you another way to do it as well, just for fun. If one way doesn't work for you, try the other. Shouldn't have a problem, but whatever. You can see down here, it's installing JSON with native extensions. So we should be okay, but you could also just type in gem install JSON if you want to do that. Click enter, and it'll install it that way as well. So either one of those ways should work. Now, we are almost done. Head back over to our controller, and we've created our URL, but now we need to do a couple more things. So we've got this URL. Now we need to actually connect to it and get the information. So I'm going to create another variable called URI. And URI stands for Uniform Resource Indicator. It's a URL type thing. And what we need to do here is set our URI to @URL, which is this guy. So basically we're saying, hey, turn this into a URI, Uniform Resource Indicator, I think. It just all has to do with this, this net HTTP module. That's just how it works. So now let's create another variable called response and set that equal to net : HTTP, which is, this guy up here, .get. Now we want to pass in that @URI. So basically we're saying take your Uniform Resource Indicator that we just created and send it out into the internet and get the results, right? And we call the results response. The website is responding, right? You can call it anything you want. And then finally, let's create our final variable. I'm going to call it output. Call it anything you want. But here's where we parse the response, right? So we go json.parse and then just pass in @response. So that should do the trick. Now we can play with this variable on our index page. So down here, I'm just going to put a line break. And this video is actually getting a little bit long, so we're going to pause it right here. And in the next video, we'll pick it up right here and actually output this stuff onto the screen. Okay, so we've got this output that will have our output. Now we want to put that on our screen. So head back over to our website, put a line break here, and let's just create a little embedded Ruby, and let's just paste in that output and see what it looks like. So save this, and come back to our app here and hit reload, and you can see, boom, this whole gobbledygook is pasted out on the screen. Now, this should look familiar. It's just this stuff right here, right? Right? Same thing. Now, this is a Ruby array, and inside of the array, arrays are designated with these square brackets. See, opening and closing square brackets. Inside of here is a Ruby hash, and those are designated with the squiggly brackets, right? So we can see, just kind of looking through here. So this is the first hash, opening squiggly bracket, closing squiggly bracket. And inside of here, there's even more. And here's the second one. Is that it? Just kind of went fast in that last one there. No, here's the second one ends right there. And then the third one, I guess, is this. So there's 3 items in our array. So we want this AQI thing of 50, which is in the first item, which is this thing. So to access the first item of an array, we just call that item with square brackets and the number of it. And you would think it would be the first one, but that's not how arrays work. The first one in an array is 0. So we put 0. And if we save this and hit reload, boom, only that stuff will appear. And you can notice no square brackets anymore. So now inside of here, you'll notice these things are key value pairs. They're all paired up. See? Here's a pair, here's the key, here's the value. Here's another pair, and these are designated with commas. So they're separated by commas. So here's a key, hours observed, here's the value, here's the key, here's the value, here's the key, here's the value. You can see the little hash rocket thing designates key from value. So again, key, value, key, value, key, value, key, value, key, value. And this is the one we want. This key and this value. We want to get this number. Right now it's 50. So we have to just call the key, which is AQI. So I'm going to copy this, head back over here, and same deal. We put another square bracket, and we just put in quotation marks the key. In this case, it's AQI. So if we save this and hit reload, boom, we have 50. Right? Which is the number we want, which is right. Oh, let's hit reload. Looks like it went down. It did not go down. Oh, we've got a different, maybe that's a different area code, maybe. Not area code, what am I looking for? Distance. So let's go 25. Build, run. AQI is 54. Okay, so that's what this is. This is a 25-mile radius within our zip code. I just want a 0-mile radius. I want to know what's right around my zip code. So that's why the numbers are slightly different. Interesting. But now we have access to that number. So let's come up here and let's just grab this whole thing. And instead of up here where it says hello world, let's just paste that in, right? Boom, 50. Awesome. So, all right, we're starting to get through this now. Now, there's some things we need to do. We need to do a little error handling in case, it's possible it doesn't return anything. There could be a glitch in the API or something like that. So we need to sort of manage for that, and we'll start to look at that in the next video. Okay, so we're connecting to the API, we're getting a result, we're putting it up on the screen, everything's fine, but we could have errors along the way. There could be all kinds of things that go wrong. For instance, the internet could be down and you can't connect to the API. The API website itself might be down. You can't connect to it. You might have put in a wrong zip code or something. You can't connect to it. So we need to bake in a little bit of error handling into our app just to make sure this will work under errors. And so the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to zip code. I'm just going to type in a gibberish one and build the URL and then run it. And when you do, you see it returns these 2 brackets, right? So this is like an error. Well, this isn't a bracket. This is a Ruby array, and it's an empty array. So we can actually test to see if the results that are returned are an empty array or not. If they're an empty array, we'll put an error on the screen. If not, we'll put whatever on the screen. So you can actually see if we come over here to our code, and in our zip code, if we just put in, you know, gibberish 1 2 3 4 5 and save this, head back over to our app and reload, we're going to get a big angry error. So how do we fix this? Well, let's write some code. First of all, head over to our index page and let's grab this and copy it. And instead of this, let's call this final output, right? Now in our controller, I'm just going to paste that thing back in. Let's do an if statement. Let's go if at output dot empty question mark do something, else do something, and then we need to end our if statement. Okay, so basically what we're saying here is if the output returns empty, then we need to create something. Let's head over here and let's grab this at final output variable that we just made up, and let's go final output equals error. Let's go capital error. So if it returns empty, then this final output will be error. And if that's the case, when it prints it out on the screen, it'll print out error, right? Otherwise, else, it's just a Ruby else statement. We want to make at final underscore output equal to that thing that we were putting out on the screen before, right? So let's kind of clean some of this up. Okay, so let's put a little comment here. Check for empty return result. I don't know. So let's save this and head back over to our website and hit reload. And we're still getting an error because I must not have Control S saved this file. Control S, make sure that file's saved. All right. Now let's hit reload. Okay, so we get this error, right? Now, if we come back up here and change our zip code back to my zip code, actual one that we know is going to work, and if we hit reload now, we get 54. So a little bit of error handling, and you can play around with this. You can add more complicated error handling if you want. For instance, this just tests to see if it returns empty. If it doesn't return anything at all, you know, you might go something like, you know, if at output, well, we create an else if block, else if there is no at output. Again, we would say something like error, save this, come back here and hit reload. It works fine. If we change this back to 1 2 3 4 5 and hit reload, we get error. How else can we flummox this thing? Nothing at all. We get error. So it seems to be working pretty good. So just some basic error handling, no big deal. In the next video, we will move on and start to work on the color coding part, which is all kinds of fun, and that'll start in the next video. Okay, in this video, we're going to start to work on color coding. Before we get into that, though, make sure you change the zip code back to your correct zip code so that our app works. So, all right, color coding. We have this Error Now website. It has these green, yellow, orange, red, purple, and I don't know what color that is, maroon maybe. So we need those colors or something like them to pop up here. We want to make this whole Jumbotron a different color. Now, if you head over to Bootstrap and hit the documentation and come down here to utilities, there's a color section here. And if we scroll down, we can see that it's easy to change the background color of a thing by just adding one of these to the thing. So for instance, we can head over to our Jumbotron, and in the class Jumbotron, we could just put a space and go bg equals primary, save this, come back here and hit reload, and now it's blue, right? So, okay, that's a real easy way to do it, but you can see we only have 6 colors basically. And we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we want them to be green, yellow, orange, red. If we come back here, we have green, and this is kind of orange. We have no yellow. The red's kind of funky. So what we want to actually do is, instead of using this, we want to just kind of create our own CSS to deal with this. And it's pretty easy to do. And we can do that. And that's what we're going to start to do in this video. So head back over to our app, assets, style sheets. Remember we created this Bootstraply one? We can just put in any kind of CSS we want right here, and then we could just call it. So let's go, I don't know, let's call it green. And then inside of here, we just call background-color, and then name the color. Now you can use hex codes if you want, or you can just type it in. We might use hex codes as well. So what do we want? We want green, yellow, orange, red. Let's see, what do we want? Green, yellow, orange, red, purple, and maroon, I guess. Purple, maroon. So green, yellow, orange, red. How was that? Purple and maroon. I don't even know what maroon is, but and then change these: maroon, purple, red, orange, and yellow. All right, so if we save this, now we can access any of these guys by just calling this, right? So head back over to our index page, and instead of this primary thing, we could just call orange, for instance. Now if we save this and head back to our website, hit reload, boom, orange. So, all right, that's a start. But now we want this to actually kind of change depending on what this number is. So I think we'll look at that in the next video. Okay, so now we want to write some logic to change this color based on the number. So first things first, head over here, and I just very quickly wrote this little thing in a notepad here. So good is 0 to 50, green is 0 to 50, yellow 51 to 100, orange 101 to 150, etc., 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 down the list. So now, head back over here. One thing we need is, let's head back to our code and to our Bootstraply CSS. Let's create another one of these for the error, right? So if it returns an error, we want to change that color too. So let's just put that as gray and change that. So okay, save that. Now head back to our index page, and where we put before orange or red or whatever color, instead of doing that, let's use some embedded Ruby. And we want to create a variable, and let's call this the API color, right? So I'm going to copy this and save it. Now if we hit reload here, there is no API color yet, so this will just default back to gray, the regular Bootstrap color. All right. So now we want to probably do this in our controller, and what we're doing here is we need to test against that final output, because remember, the final output will either be error or it will be a number, right? So let's create a new if statement. So if, and then I'm going to go ahead and end it. So if at final underscore output equals double equal to sign equals error, then API color equals gray. Well, gray. There we go. Right? Now we can do multiple tests, right? So we can go else if, and if we go final output, now we can start testing against numbers. So we can say if it's less than or equal to 50, which is this right here, right? Then at API color equals green, right? Else if at final output. So now if it's 51, so if it's greater than or equal to 51 and at final underscore output is, let's say, less than, where'd we go? There we go. Less than or equal to 100, then at API underscore color equals what? Yellow, right? Okay. So now I think we could just copy this. So yellow, orange, red, purple, maroon. So I'm just going to come through here and change all of these from green, yellow, orange, red, purple, and maroon. Delete that a bit. All right, so yellow is 51 to 100. Orange is 101 to 150, right? Red is 151 to 200. And I'm just getting these numbers from right here, right? Let's see. Purple is 201 to 300. And finally, maroon is 301 to 500. All right, so if we save this, so looking through this again, it's just a simple if statement, right? If the final output is error, our color will be gray. Otherwise, if it's less than or equal to 50, it'll be green. If it's 51 to 100, it'll be yellow. If it's 101 to 150, it'll be orange. If it's 151 to 200, it'll be red. If it's 201 to 300, it'll be purple. 301 to 500, maroon. And this is just basic Ruby here. This is an if-else-if statement. We have multiple conditionals. That means that this has to be true and this has to be true in order for the whole thing to evaluate true. And that looks pretty good. So now if we head back to our site, boom, 51 is yellow. We come over here, 51 is in fact yellow, 51 to 100, moderate. So we're just on the cusp of moderate, very, very close. And it seems to be working. So let's give it a test one time here. And let's come back up here to our zip code and let's put in that gobbledygook. Save this and return here and run it again. And boom, whoa, that's dark gray. Do we like that color? I don't know. Let's head back over to our, let's change gray to what, silver? I don't know if that's an actual color. Hit reload. Yeah, that's looking better. All right, so yeah, it seems to be working. Head back over to our index page, no, our home controller page, and change our zip code back. Hit reload. Boom. All right, so it's working. It does everything we want. Now, I think it'd be a good idea to kind of put a little, like maybe right down here, something like an explanation of what yellow means. So I think we'll look at that in the next video. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the first half of my Build a Weather app with Ruby on Rails course. If you want to see the rest of the course, unfortunately, you have to pay for it. That's one of these deals. So there's a couple of different ways you can grab this course. The first is to go to my website, codemy.com, and scroll down here to the bottom and find the Build a Weather app with Ruby on Rails course. Go ahead and click it. It is $29. You can do that. I don't recommend you do that. What I do recommend is you go to codemy.com and just sign up for total membership. Now, total membership is usually $49. If you click the sign up button, you can see it's $49, but you can use this coupon code YouTube. And when you do, it knocks $22 off membership. So you pay just $27 and you get access to all of my courses. I've got, I don't know, over 40 courses. I try to add a new course every couple of weeks, and when that happens, you get those absolutely free. You get access to me, you get access to other students, you can ask questions, interact. You get the PDF versions of all my books, all my coding books. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I have these two Ruby and Ruby on Rails books. If you're interested in these are each, I don't know, 27 bucks, I think, on Amazon if you buy the paperbacks. You can get the PDF version of both of these and a bunch of other books that I've written for free when you sign up for the total membership. So that's very cool. Just remember coupon code YouTube to get $22 off, and that's really cool. And you can come to the main website here, codemy.com, and just scroll through here, and you can just kind of glance and see all of the courses that I'm offering. We got a ton of Ruby on Rails courses. We got a couple of Ruby programming courses if you just want to learn Ruby, all kinds of stuff. Very cool. And you can click on each of these to read more about them. But like I said, they're normally 29 bucks each, but if you sign up for total membership using that coupon code, you get them all for $27. That's a one-time fee. There's no extra charge ever. It's not like a yearly fee or a monthly fee or anything. You have access to the course for life. It's very, very cool. So check that out if you're interested. Another way to get the rest of this course is on Udemy. And if you come to johnelder.com/udemy.php, this lists all my courses on Udemy. And if you scroll down here and find that weather app right here, you can click on this. This will send you over to Udemy, and you'll get the course at the current lowest price that I can offer. And that's probably going to be somewhere around $15. That's just how Udemy works. They kind of tie my hands as to how low I can put that price. So if you just like Udemy and you like their format and their way of watching videos and stuff, you can check that out there. Otherwise, I would suggest just go over to my Codemy website, sign up for all my courses for that one low fee. I mean, 27 bucks, you can't even buy a pizza for that these days. So check that out. So that's all for this video. If you liked it, be sure to smash the like button below, subscribe to the channel, and check out codemy.com where you can use coupon code YouTube to get $22 off membership. So you pay just $27 to access all my courses, hundreds of videos, and the PDFs of all my best-selling coding books. Join over 60,000 students learning to code just like you. My name is John Elder from codemy.com, and we'll see you in the next video.